Hello. Oh, Jesus Christ, that was loud. Hello, everybody. My name is Tom Burns, and welcome to the final stream of 2025, our 2025 wrap up. It's What's the News? It's return for 2025 wrap up. Let me just get myself on the screen, and there I am. As you can see, I've got like a New Year theme with fireworks and stuff like that. Thought it was apt to do that. But I hope you've all had a good Christmas. Mine was fairly quiet, to be honest. I was off work, which was lucky because I don't get it off every year. It was pretty quiet. But yeah, nevertheless, it was a good Christmas. But yeah, me and my co-host, who I will introduce in a second, we're here to do a 2025 wrap up. So we're going to talk about the big events that happened this year. We're not going to go into every single thing that's happened this year because we could be here for 24 hours talking about every single thing that's happened this year. We haven't got that time. So we're going to have to cut it down to things that we really want to talk about and the things that we deem the bigger things that happened this year. So yeah, but before we get into anything, without further ado, as always, my co-host, formerly known as Professor Wigglytuff, now the real sort of cat, is of course here to join me. So everybody, here we are. Cat.
Thank you very much, Tom, and good evening, and wiggly wiggly, and meow meow, nyan nyan to you all. Hope you had a good Christmas and Boxing Day and whatever you celebrate. And yeah, uh, 2026 is almost here. What a year it's going to be. But before we talk about what's to come in 2026, let's bring the curtain down on what has been a turbulent year, it's fair to say. Um, that's all from me for now. Over to you, Tom.
Okay, so um, I think it would be, we have to. I don't know whether to kick off with this or whether to kick off with something else. I think maybe we should kick off with something else actually first before we get into what I was just about to talk
Well,
about.
I wonder if maybe we go through it month by month.
I mean, we could do that if you want. It's yeah. By all
I
means,
mean,
it's up to you. You can kick us off with January if you want.
if you want to bring like some stuff in the background, of a timeline of stuff that happened in January, we can reflect on all of that. But off the top of my head, the two big significant events that I can think of that happened in January were the return of a certain president in the White House. Um, I won't say any more on that. And the passing of a football icon who played for both Manchester City, but more notably for Manchester United, one of the Holy Trinity, infamously scored a back heel against United that didn't exactly relegate them, but sent them on the way to relegation. I am, of course, talking about the King, Dennis Law. Anything else that stood out for you in January?
Um, I'm just trying to think. Of course, one big thing that did happen. Um, Perhaps not as big on the scale of what you were just talking about, but of course something that is a very big achievement and something that does deserve to mention. Of course, on Jan 3rd, so at the very start of the year, um, the Luke Little became the youngest ever world champion when he beat Michael van Gerwen last year in the final. Um, that is a big moment. I mean, he was only 17 years old. I mean, that's incredible. So that deserves a big mention. And who knows, he could do it again. He's playing very well. He could do it again. But that deserves a mention. I was going to mention what you mentioned about a certain president, but I don't think we should really get into that too much. Yeah, I'm just trying to find like the big moments that happened in Jan 2025, but I'm struggling really to find anything major that happened. Um, let's have a look. I really should have done my research before I started the stream, but I've just been quite busy today, so I've not been, you know.
It's fine. We've got time.
Okay. Suppose a big moment for same-sex couples in Thailand. Marriage was legalized in January this year. That's a big moment for them in Thailand. Of course, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he announced he was resigning in January after 9 years.
Yes, and of course, the current Prime Minister is now our former Governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney. So,
what else?
and immediately he was thrown into a bit of a diplomatic issue with his neighbours south of the border, but you know.
Also, in Tibet, a 6.1 magnitude earthquake struck, killing at least 226 people. Obviously, a very, very sad moment there. I'm really struggling to find anything major that happened in January. In terms of like
anything in the sporting sense.
I'm just like it's amazing that I can't find anything. Let's research something else because this might come up with something better. Okay, let's have David Lynch, the acclaimed filmmaker and director, he died at 78. This is such an unorganised fucking episode. What's the news? Lots of people died in January, celeb-wise, but I'm trying to find one. Oh, well, obviously Dennis Law, like you mentioned.
I don't know if maybe you want to spend a few minutes reflecting on the passing of Dennis Law.
Yeah.
As a United fan.
Yeah. Just give me a second. From what I can see, there wasn't any other. I mean, there was plenty of deaths, and I mean this by. I don't mean any disrespect by saying this, but there wasn't anybody else of note that I feel that we need to mention. That's no disrespect. It's just if I spent all the time mentioning every single celeb that died in January, I'd be here all day. So that's no disrespect. That's just we just don't have the time. And, rest in peace to all the ones that did pass away. But of course, Dennis Law as a United fan. I mean, obviously, I'm a bit young to really have seen Dennis Law in his heyday. Of course, my gran being a big United fan, she told me all about the old players, and yeah, she said he was a great player. A fantastic player. It's a shame that he played for both City and United and didn't just play for United, but it is what it is. I'm not going to hold that against him. But yeah, I mean, I can't really say a lot about him. It's, of course, a very sad day for United and for City. Both teams have lost a legend. But yeah, I can't say too much because, I didn't really. I wasn't really around when he was playing. I've seen clips, of course, and he seemed like he was a very, very good player. But yeah, there's not a lot else I can say. It's very, very sad. Yeah.
I mean, of course, one of a handful of British players to ever won the Ballon d'Or. As you said, played for both City and United and represented Scotland as well. I had the privilege of meeting Dennis Law back in 2019. I asked him about that back heel. He kind of nodded and winked, pretending that he didn't know what I was talking about, but we talked about it. and I got a signed shirt from him, which now is a treasured possession of mine. I had the honour as well of attending the funeral on behalf of the Man City Disabled Supporters Association. Very moving affair, some moving speeches from his family and friends, including Sir Alex Ferguson. A lot of big personalities from both City and United and Scottish football were there. A very sad day. But, rest in peace, Dennis Law.
Of course. Like I said, I can't see anything else that's happened. Like, I'm on this website here, right? And you can look at events and you can look at deaths. Literally, according to this. Oh, hang on, no, I'm wrong. I'm an idiot. Never mind. Ignore me. What else happened in Jan then? I thought. Oh, I'm an idiot. Anything else happened worth mentioning? Lots of stuff happened, but it's like what's worth mentioning, what's worth talking about, because we can't talk about everything, because we'd be here all day. Lots of stuff that a certain president has done. Literally, as soon as he got in power, there's like 4 things here that he fucking did or said.
Well, it seems the word of the year is tariffs.
Yeah. Anything else? Lots of stuff about that. A certain president. Can't get away from him. From what I can see, there's not really anything else worth of mention that's happened in Jan. We move to February. Let's look. Can you think of anything off the top of your head while I just look?
Obviously, we had the Super Bowl. The Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl, I think, for the second time in their history.
Just looking now.
When did the Royal Rumble take place? That was January, wasn't it?
That was that was Feb 1st, wasn't it?
Can't remember, but we can reflect on the Royal Rumble.
I'm trying to. Let me just have a quick Google of that. I'm sure it was Feb 1st, but it was the first time it was outside of January.
Probably.
Yeah, it was Feb 1st. So yeah, so that's something we talk about Feb. I'll let you start.
Yeah, Royal Rumble. Jey Uso and John Cena were the last two. John Cena obviously announced at the tail end of 2024 that this was going to be his final year in the ring.
Yes.
We assumed he was going to win the Royal Rumble. He didn't. I can't remember who won the women's Royal Rumble. Was it Bayley?
No, it wasn't. It was Charlotte.
Charlotte Flair, yes.
She returned and won. She eliminated Roxanne Perez to win. I mean, look, I quite liked the Rumble this year for shock value because not so much the women's, because I sort of predicted that Charlotte, because it was pretty much fault that Charlotte was returning, and I was like, if she shows up, she's winning it. She showed up, she won it. So I predicted that. But with the men, I said all day long it's going to be John Cena. He's not going to lose. He's going to win. He's going to go on to WrestleMania. He's going to get his 17th championship. I said that. And then when it got to the final two, I was like, yep, this is all day. This is John Cena. Jey Uso is never winning a Royal Rumble. What happens? Jey Uso wins the Royal Rumble. Shock value, it was great because you never really get a shock in the Royal Rumble anymore. You get like murmurs of who the rumoured winners are, be like 3-4 months before the Rumble, and then it turns out the rumours are usually correct. So there's just never any shock value anymore. So I like the fact that Jey Uso won for shock value, and plus I feel like he deserved it. I mean, he gets a lot of hate, but he had a great 2024. I feel like he deserved it. And fair play to him. Like I said, the women's was very predictable. I would have rather it been somebody else, but it is what it is. But yeah, the Royal Rumble was pretty good. I don't envisage 2026 Royal Rumble being as good. It's in Saudi. I'm not saying that's the only reason I don't think it'll be good. I just don't think it's going to be a good Rumble. But that's by the by. We can talk about that when we talk about what's to come in 2026 in a bit. I'm just looking to see if there's anything major that happened in Feb that's worth talking about. No. Right, so what deaths happened in Feb that we can talk about? Anybody that we can talk about? There's lots of deaths, but again, I can't mention them all. Rest in peace to them all, but I can't mention them all here all day. Rick Buckler from the Jam. He died on Feb 17th, but he died at 69. I don't know if you're a Jam fan. But yeah, he died. Don't know if you want to say anything about that. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm just looking up events from 2025 February.
Okay, any death worth talking about? Of course, Roberta Flack, who famously sang "Killing Me Softly" with his song. She died at the age of 88 with complications of ALS. I love that song, "Killing Me Softly." It was very, very sad to hear about her passing. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, but Michelle Trachtenberg, American actress who was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, amongst a lot of other things, including a lot of films as well. I know her mainly from Buffy, and she was in, I believe, one of the Final Destination films. She died at 39 from complications of diabetes. Very, very sad. Very, very sad. Very, very shocking. Only 39. She was a terrific actress. Very sad. A wrestler from New Japan Pro Wrestling, Osamu Nishimura, passed away at the age of 53 of cancer. And that's it. That was it for Feb. Anything else you want to add before we move on?
No, we crack on.
Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, there is going to be things that we will talk about at length. It's just so far we've not really found much in the first 2 months. Okay, so what events happened in March? The 97th Academy Awards was on March 2nd. The Brit Awards. Again, more stuff about a certain president. My God. This certain president gave the longest ever speech to Congress. It was a 99-minute speech. My God. I cannot imagine being in that room having to listen to that certain person for 99 minutes. I'll be ready. I'm sorry if this comes across like disgusting and crude, but I'll be ready to blow my fucking brains out. I mean, Jesus Christ. Sorry if that offends anyone, but yeah, anyway, moving on.
Mark Carney became Prime Minister of Canada.
Yeah. Anything else? Maybe.
Rory McIlroy earned his second Players title.
Yeah.
And he would obviously go on to complete the Grand Slam.
Indeed, that's why he won the Sports Personality of the Year.
Yeah.
But we will talk about that in a bit. When we get to December.
I think I'm on the same page as you, but
on March 18th is I don't want to make this a political stream, so we're not going to talk about this much, but it is worth mentioning. Israel launched an airstrike on attack on Gaza, killing at least 404 people, injuring 562 others, ending the ceasefire agreement reached in January. They didn't last long.
I ought to mention from January, I forgot to mention, the passing of another Man City legend, our former captain and manager, Tony Book.
Oh, yeah.
Died at the age of 90. Again, I had the honour of meeting him a number of years ago. One of the greatest captains in our history during our previous glory period in the 60s and the 70s. With Joe Mercer and Malcolm Allison, famously won the FA Cup and the League Cup and European Cup Winners' Cup double in 1970. And then as a manager, guided Man City to the League Cup in 1976, 50th anniversary of which is next year.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, worth mentioning, definitely. I missed that because I to be honest, did not heard of him, so that's how I missed it. But as a City fan, obviously, you would have heard of him. March 21st, something big happened because this sort of thing never really happens. A major power outage caused by a fire at a nearby electricity substation forces Heathrow Airport to shut down completely, stopping more than 1,300 flights and disrupting more than 270,000 passenger journeys. Massive, massive thing to happen, especially for us here in the UK. If we were trying to fly out that day, I feel for you. That must have been awful. But I remember seeing that on the news. It was shocking because Heathrow just doesn't come to a standstill like that ever. So for it to come to a standstill completely and like no flights be going in or out, weird. More stuff about a certain president. Another earthquake, 7.7 this March 28th, 7.7 magnitude earthquake followed by 6.4 magnitude aftershock strikes central Myanmar, causing devastating damage across Southeast Asia, leaving more than 4,400 people dead and at least 7,000 injured and hundreds of missing persons. I remember that. Awful. Absolutely awful. And from what I can see, that is it for March in terms of events. Let's see. Deaths. Anybody worth mentioning? Don't want to overlook anyone, so I'm going slowly.
No, nothing else in March, as far as I can see.
Just looking to see if there's any deaths that we need to mention. George Foreman. I mean, we've got to mention him. He died.
Of course.
March 21st, American boxer, world heavyweight champion. He was boxing before my time. Well, not quite before my time. He was, but he was also
he also famously won the world heavyweight title at 40.
Yeah.
At the time, he was the oldest. He certainly is the oldest heavyweight champion in history, and was the oldest boxing champion at that point in time.
Yeah.
Until his record was broken many years later by Bernard Hopkins. For a lot of younger viewers and listeners, he's probably more associated with the line of George Foreman grills. Famously for Joe Frazier.
Yeah.
but perhaps most memorably of all, against Muhammad Ali in the Rumble in the Jungle,
Of course.
which he lost.
Yeah.
That was in 1973, and it would be some 21 years later that he would win the World Heavyweight Championship. So he, boxing legend, someone who I also had the privilege of meeting as well many years ago. An inspirational figure.
Yeah.
He spent his remaining days as a pastor. I heard him speak. It was great. A legend of the sport.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a difficult one for me to talk about because I don't follow boxing as much as what you do. Of course, I know who he is. Of course, I know about the Rumble in the Jungle. I mean, who doesn't?
He's a legend. He's a legendary name.
He's a legendary name. He absolutely is. He was 76. He was when he died.
When you talk about the great boxers of all time, when you talk about Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, Rocky Marciano, Sugar Ray Leonard, you can't mention all of these names and not mention George Foreman in there.
Exactly. Yeah.
And of course, there was another boxer who passed away this year, but we will come on to that when we get to September.
Of course. So George Foreman there, March 31st. Let's see, who else is there? Anybody else?
But it might be a good point to kind of pause and just reflect on the football season. No, actually, we'll get to May. When we get to May, we can do that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, no, nothing else of note in March, so let's go to April. Events. More stuff about certain president.
What about stuff closer to home? Been a bit of a turbulent year in this country.
Yeah, it has indeed. Of course, April 13th, that's when Rory McIlroy claimed his Grand Slam with the US Masters Gold.
Significantly, a US president rolled out, that word of the tariffs that caused shock, bemusement all over the world, affected the stock markets. Of course, the biggest event of April occurred on Easter Monday, I believe.
Well, of course,
the death of.
We'll get to that in a minute. When I get onto the desk, we'll get to that. I've no news, I've just gone past it myself. On April 27th, Liverpool won 24-25 English Premier League title against Tottenham, beating them 5-1. That's like there's quite a few games to go as well. Obviously not something either me or my co-host was happy to see, but it happened.
It's worth pointing out that was only the second time in the Premier League era that, Liverpool had won the title, for such a big team. So I've only won it twice, and only the third time they'd won the league since, including when they won it in 1990. So from 1990 onwards, they've only won the league 3 times.
Yeah.
So that's one every 30 odd years or so. No, every 10 years or so. Sorry, I can't do the maths.
Of course, kicking off April, one person we have to talk about who passed away, Val Kilmer.
He did, yeah. Starred in many movies, including Heat. He was the voice of Moses in one of my favourite animated movies, The Prince of Egypt. He starred as Batman in the awful Batman Forever, but to many, he'll be known as forever remembered as Tom Cruise's rival in Top Gun and its sequel. Very sad, very underrated actor, but rest in peace.
And of course, it was Batman as well at one point.
I did, yeah, I mentioned that.
Oh, did you? Sorry, I didn't hear you mention that. But yeah, he was Batman. That's what I know more as than anything else. But very sad. Only 65. He was pneumonia. Very sad. Very sad indeed. Very very good actor. I enjoyed his portrayal of Batman. Not my favourite portrayal of Batman, but I did enjoy it.
It wasn't the greatest Batman movie, let's be fair.
No.
But then what was to follow after that was even more ridiculous. But to be fair, that's kind of why I enjoyed it, because it was just so ridiculous. Sorry, I'm just thinking of Batman and Robin now and thinking of all the cheesy dialogue. Mainly thanks to Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes. Well, I never listened to the one person, but just thinking if there's anybody else before we get to that person.
I mean, there is, of course, one major death we have to reflect on.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm going to get to that in a second. I'm just thinking anymore before we get to that. Not that I can see. So, of course, on April 21st, a big death happened, and it was, of course, the current Pope, the current Pope at the time, Pope Francis. He passed away on April 21st at 88. It was a big moment. You know, it was on TV all day, and then his funeral the same. Very big moment, and of course he was then succeeded by the first ever American Pope, I believe Leo, if I'm not mistaken.
Pope Leo XIV,
yes,
yeah.
From Chicago, I believe. So yeah, but yeah, very big moment indeed. I mean, I'm not massively religious. I was brought up in religion, but I'm not massively religious, so it didn't really affect me too much. I mean, it's sad, of course. You know, I wouldn't say it's not, but it didn't affect me. It didn't upset me. But my gran, being massive in religion and going to church twice a week, and it affected her. So it's understandable. What sort of effect the popes have on people who are massively religious people. So yeah. Anything you want to add?
No, it was a significant event. As is the passing of any pope. It can be argued that the Pope's probably one of the most influential, if not the most influential leader in the world. When you count the billions of Catholics worldwide who view him as obviously the head of the Catholic Church. He is both, of course, the head of state, Vatican City being a country which I visited this year as well, and being the head of a religion, the Catholic religion. So yes, it was a significant moment, attended by many world leaders. Yeah, I mean, there was an infamous moment between the president of the United States and the Ukrainian president that happened in that earlier part of the year, and this was the first time they were meeting each other since that incident. Again, I'm not going to reflect on that. I don't want to. But yeah, April was dominated by the sad passing of the Pope on Easter weekend, no less. we move on to May.
Just give me a sec. Okay. I'm being told that my mic is not great. So just give me a second to sort that out. Apparently it's unintelligible.
Why don't we just pause the stream for a moment whilst we fix the technical issues?
It will take me a second to do. And just swap my mic over. I don't usually have an issue. It's my webcam mic, so I don't understand it. But it seems okay, like because I'm using my webcam mic for your talking to you on the call, and you can understand me. So I don't know why it's not coming across like that on the stream, but it doesn't matter. I can change the mic. Right. Hopefully that's a bit better. It's I'm getting, my friends are telling me that it's it's not working right, but it's a mic I've always used, so I don't know if it's just like the mic's broken on it from the last time I streamed to this time, because it was fine the last time I streamed. Don't know, but anyway, I've got this mic now, so hopefully it should be better. I'm getting told it's better, so let me just listen to it myself. Yes, it is better. That's what I like to hear. Right, so we move on to, well, shortly move on to May. Let me just check that there isn't anybody else to mention. Don't want to overlook anybody and cause any disrespect. No. Okay. Rest in peace, everybody that has passed away, by the way, that I've seen so far this year. I can't mention everyone because I'll be here all day, but it's no disrespect. Okay. So on May 3rd, Lady Gaga added a free concert at Copacabana Beach that drew 2.5 million attendees, which is the largest concert in history for a female artist. That is big.
Yeah, Lady Gaga, who I had the privilege of seeing in concert later in the year, but we'll come on to we'll reflect on our personal highlights of the year after we've done our review of the year.
A certain president again doing something. Oh, I didn't even realise this one. It's not really massive in terms of like. It's not really massive, but in terms of people from my generation who use this a lot, it's quite a significant thing.
Yeah, I know what you're going to mention.
Skype, the pioneering online video calling service established in 2003, is taken offline for good by Microsoft. Now I just want to reflect on that a minute. It's amazing that, because I used to use that a lot to talk to my friends, or I still talk to now, but I use Discord now. But we always used to use Skype. I didn't even realise that it had been took offline. Like, I honestly didn't even see that until just now. I mean, it is sad. It feels like it's the end of an era. But then again, I haven't used it for years, and a lot of people haven't used it for years, so perhaps it was time. But yeah, definitely a significant event there for people of my generation.
Absolutely, and look, Skype, was pioneering at the time, and it paved the way for what we have today. Whether it's Facebook Messenger, whether it's WhatsApp. I mean, for me, the thing that I miss about Skype is that its ability to make international calls anywhere to any number. There are other apps out there you can use to do that, including, and this is not me trying to do a promotional plug or anything, but Viber, if you know of it. Viber is one that I use. So,
yeah, it's definitely a significant moment for our generation. on to May 8th, that's when Leo was elected Pope. The 267th Pope, to be specific. The first American to hold the office as well, which I did say earlier. Of course, well, I say of course, May 18th, May 15th, Chris Brown was arrested again. He was arrested and jailed upon entering England on charges of an unprovoked attack in 2023 nightclub incident. Isn't he just a lovely man?
Indeed, what a lovely man.
I know.
And of course, May is the traditional, when the curtain falls down on the football season.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a sec. May 18th, the 69th Eurovision Song Contest was won by JJ from Austria singing Wasted Love in Switzerland. So that's that. Zach Starkey resigned from The Who has been their drummer since 1996.
Zach Starkey, of course, the son of Richard Starkey, otherwise known as Ringo Starr. Some of you probably know who he is.
Oh. So on May 19th, police in Paris, France, discovered a statue of Doors singer Jim Morrison that had been stolen in 1988 from his gravesite at Père Lachaise Cemetery, if I'm saying that right. That's quite. I didn't even know about that, but that's quite a big moment. Finding a statue that was stolen all them years ago. Wow. Okay. Jesus Christ. So then on May 21st, after Chris Brown was arrested, he was then bailed from jail. A 6.7 million bail. Jesus Christ. Lando Norris wins the Monaco Grand Prix from McLaren, the team's first victory at the event since 2008. That was on May 25th. We'll get to Lando Norris a bit later on as well, because obviously there's stuff to say about him as well.
Of course.
On May 26th, Charles III begins a royal visit to Canada, accompanied by Queen Consort Camilla, and is the first reigning monarch to read the speech from the throne since 1977. There you go. Oh, on May 30th, Taylor Swift announced she had bought back the rights to her entire discography from Shamrock, including the master recordings of her first 6 studio albums. Wow. Okay. Okay, deaths. Let's have a look. Don't want to skip through too quickly because I don't want to, again, be disrespectful. But, I can't see anybody of note who died in May yet. There is an Italian boxer that died, Nino Benvenuti. But I've never heard of him. But rest in peace, all the same. Anybody else? No. No. Okay. No. All right. Well, moving on to June. Well, actually, before we move on to June, you want to talk about the football season? So go ahead.
Yeah, the football season, eh? Mixed fortunes for our teams. It was the first time since the debut season of Pep Guardiola that City ended the campaign without a major trophy.
Yeah.
notwithstanding the Community Shield, which we had won earlier in the year. We did get to the FA Cup final, beaten 1-0 in the final by Crystal Palace, who won their first ever trophy and then their second ever trophy, winning the Community Shield as well later in the year. City didn't really mount a title defence at all. They had a lacklustre season that looked at one point as though they were going to miss out on a Champions League spot, even with there being a top 5 this year.
Yeah.
And in the end, we did finish third. I believe we only finished 3 points behind Arsenal, who eventually finished second yet again. And I hear it wasn't that good for your team.
Don't remember what happened. To be honest, I might as well not remember what happened because it wasn't a memorable season for my team. It was horrible. It was horrible. If I think we see, this is how much I don't remember it. I think we finished 15th. I think that's where we finished.
Well, the team who finished below you in 17th were the ones who came out victorious in the Europa League final. It
Yeah,
was the battle of the relegation candidates, as I like to call it. Both teams basically put on the line
it was.
that final for a place in the
Yeah,
Champions League.
it wasn't a memorable match. I was in Orlando when that match
Tot-
was on. It was
Tottenham
just
won. Tottenham won the final, but then shortly afterwards sacked the manager.
yeah, which
In true Tottenham form. But
yeah,
in fairness, Tottenham did have a bad season in the league.
they did.
But nevertheless, the man who wins them their first trophy in 17 years and gets them into the Champions League
Yeah,
is then thanked by being sacked.
yeah, I know.
Chelsea did win the Conference League, beating Real Betis in the final.
Yeah,
But otherwise, yeah, it was a disappointing season for City, both the men's and the women's team. The women missed out on a Champions League spot.
yeah,
They're doing well so far this season. And then we go on to June.
yeah. Just before we do, yeah,
Of course, we didn't. April, we didn't. I mean, we can talk about the wrestling afterwards.
yeah. We can talk about the year of wrestling after that. The events and stuff on this don't, unless it's deaths, don't really show up any wrestling related stuff. So, but yeah, going back just before we go to June, yeah, I was in Orlando at the time when that final was on, and I cut my day short in one of the theme parks to get home to watch, not get home, get to the hotel room to watch that match. Wasn't happy. And the worst thing was about it is that the person I went on holiday with to Orlando was a Liverpool fan, so you can just imagine the grief that I got after that. So yeah, it wasn't exactly the best day of my holiday, but I'll get to my holiday a bit later on when we talk about our highlights from this year.
Hey, it could have been worse. Could have been worse. You could have been on holiday with me.
That's true. That's true. I think you would have. I think you would have been a lot worse, in all fairness.
Well, I don't know, to be honest. My team didn't have a good season, so it's
Yeah.
not as though I had much to
No,
share about.
So yeah, so we move on to June.
Yes,
hang on a minute.
June.
Let's get to events before we talk about
Champions
deaths.
League final was on the 1st of June, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, PSG basically thrashed. Well, they did. They thrashed Inter Milan. Was it 4 or 5-0? I can't remember, but I believe it was the biggest
But
scoreline.
It was a big scoreline. But it says here, June 1st, PSG Football Club fans caused chaos across France following the club's victory in Champions League. 2 people die, 201 are injured. 4 stores are looted, hundreds are arrested in clashes with riot police, and 1 police officer is left in a coma. I mean, I'm not being funny, right? Look, I understand it. Look, I understand that you want to celebrate your team winning the Champions League. I get it. I'd be jumping up and down screaming if United won the Champions League. It probably won't happen in my lifetime. I hope it does. I mean, I'm not hopefully not going anywhere anytime soon, but um, the way we are at the moment, it's not going to happen anytime soon. But I would be over the moon. But I ain't about to go out and fucking loot shops and clash with police and cause injuries to people. I'm just not going to do it. Like, yeah, okay, your team's won the Champions League. Does it really require you to do all that shit? Absolutely not. Like, how stupid. I mean, you've tainted what was a massive moment for your country, for your city, for your football team. You've tainted it by the shit that you did after.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much else to add to that except, I'm in agreement. It's disgraceful what they did. As you said, it tainted what was a historic victory. It was only the second time a French team had won the Champions League or European Cup in its various guises. And a bit like Man City in 2023, PSG finally getting their hands on the trophy they wanted the most, the Champions League.
Yeah.
And indeed, I believe they did a quadruple that season. The French League, the Champions League, the French Cup, and the French League Cup. So,
moving on.
Hasn't quite gone to plan for them this season, but PSG obviously now part of the elite.
Of course. But yeah, moving on from the football talk. June 14th, the Royal Birthday Honours, Charles III's Birthday Honours list awards knighthoods to soccer star David Beckham, actor Gary Oldman, and the Who singer Roger Daltrey. All 3 deserving, in my opinion. Actress and singer Elaine Page and novelist Pat Barker were given Dame Hoods. So yeah,
I'm not a fan of Roger Daltrey, but yeah, probably deserved.
I mean, in all fairness, whether you're a fan of him or not, he's part of a legendary group. He's been around a long time. You can't. Whether you're a fan of the Who or not, you can't. I'm not a fan of the Who, but they are legendary. There's no doubt about that.
I suppose.
They're not as legendary as the likes of the Beatles or Rolling Stones or anything like that, but they are legends in their own right. I'm not a fan of the Who in any way, shape, or form, but I will say that. Anything else worth mentioning that happened in June? Of course, June 27th, Glastonbury Festival. It was 1975, Neil Young and Olivia Rodrigo were headlining. Other performers included Rod Stewart, The Script, Nile Rodgers and Chick, Charlie XCX, John Fogerty, and The Searchers. Of course, that's a big event that happens nearly every year.
Pulp as well.
Yeah, well, they weren't mentioned, but yeah, of course.
Pulp, they played under a pseudonym. They do that every year at Glastonbury. They put someone on the list that nobody recognises the name, and it ends up being someone big.
Yeah. So that was the events. In terms of deaths, let me just have a scroll through here. See if there's anybody worth mentioning. Canadian astronaut, Mark Garneau, I hope pronounce, he died at 76. The first Canadian to enter space, he was. What else? American singer-songwriter, vocal arranger, and producer, Beach Boys, In My Room, Good Vibrations, God Only Knows, Caroline No.
Yeah.
Brian Wilson, he died of respiratory failure at 82 on June 11th.
Legendary.
Yeah, of course. All them songs that he produced, very, very good ones as well. Very good.
Anything else? Let's not go too quick. Of course, very very well known celebrity personality here in the UK. Don't know if anyone will have heard of her outside of the UK, but she was firstly known for a TV show where she basically it was a cleaning TV show, and then she made her name as being a very argumentative and arrogant person inside the Big Brother house. I'm of course talking about Kim Woodburn. She passed away at 83 on June 16th. Most people will know her from Big Brother. They won't know her from her TV show How Clean Is Your House. I know her from How Clean Is Your House. But she did really make her name in Big Brother when she, caused the drama that she did. Of course, especially with her rivalry with Colleen Nolan as well. So yeah, she passed away at 83. Anything else that's happened so far? No. Don't want to miss anyone. Nope. Nothing else in July. So June, sorry. So let's go on to July. July 1st, France begin ban on smoking in all outdoor areas frequented by children, including parks, beaches, public gardens, bus stops, school entrances and sports venues. Fines start at €90. Oh, of course, one of the biggest things to happen this year, the whole Sean Diddy Combs saga. On July 2nd, American rapper and hip hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs is found guilty on 2 counts of transportation for prostitution and acquitted of racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. Of course, a big story coming out of this year, and it's been a meme since, these Diddy parties, and apparently the amount of baby oil that he had at his house and stuff like that. Very very disturbing to say the least. I mean, I really liked his music, and it just goes to show you really don't know what people are doing behind closed doors. You might think that they're a really stand up nice guy, but behind closed doors they're having sex parties and using lots of baby oil. You just don't know what's going on behind closed doors. You really don't. And yeah, not only one of the big moments from July, but one of the big moments of the year. I don't know if you want to talk about that a bit. Hello, you there?
Yep, still here.
Yeah, I said I don't know if you want to mention and talk about that a bit.
About P. Diddy?
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing to mention, really. The man disgraced himself and, deserves to be erased from the record, as it were.
Of course. So that was that on July 2nd. Of course, and I will talk about this more later because this is one of my highlights of the year as well. July 4th, Liam and Noel Gallagher begin Oasis live 25 reunion tour at Principality Stadium, Cardiff, Wales, ending their 16-year split. We'll talk about that more later because we both got to see them live this year, so I'm sure that we'll mention them in the highlights of our own personal highlights of the year. So we will
And of
talk more
course,
about that later.
The very next day, on the 5th of July, Black Sabbath rejoined for a one-off.
Yes, of course.
And what was to be their very final gig.
Yeah.
Flanked by some, a who's who of rock music.
Yes, and here it is. July 5th, Ozzy Osbourne's Back to the Beginning final concert performance includes a reunion with original Black Sabbath band members at Villa Park in Birmingham, England, and raise funds for Children's Hospitals, and Parkinson's disease research. Other acts in the day-long festival include Metallica, Slayer, Guns N' Roses, Gojira, and Anthrax. Big concert. My friend who I went to America with, she managed to go and watch that concert. She was very lucky to get a ticket, and she said it was amazing.
Very lucky indeed to see. I mean, we will of course discuss it a bit later.
Of course.
But it was all the more poignant when we do get to that point.
Yeah. Let's see. Anything else? Pardon me. Sorry.
Maybe if we could just pause for a short break and we'll return in a moment.
Just before we do, of course, July 13th, the FIFA Club World Cup final. Chelsea defeats PSG 3-0, becoming the inaugural world champions under the expanded FIFA format.
Yeah, I mean, inaugural under the expanded format.
Yeah, that's what it said. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I'm keen to emphasise this to our listeners because it's still the same trophy that Man City had won in 2023. And, Man City went into the competition as defending world champions. And, of course, as defending world champions, Man City got to wear the badge on their shirt from 2023 to 2025. So, for me personally, it was a big moment because Man City were the defending world champions. And, as the defending world champions, they were there to defend their world championship at the Club World Championship. And unfortunately, despite being the defending world champions and being tipped to go all the way, they unfortunately didn't. But nevertheless, they were still the defending world champions. And when they won it in 2023, they were the first team to win all 5 of the Premier League, FA Cup, Champions League, the UEFA Super Cup, and the Club World Cup in one single calendar year.
Yeah.
Something that PSG couldn't do.
Yeah.
PSG did, of course, win the Intercontinental Cup, which has now been restored. Well, not so much restored, but basically the Intercontinental Cup is now the format of what the old Club World Cup was. But nevertheless, PSG didn't win the Club World Cup. And you could argue that since that day, Chelsea, since their loss to Chelsea, PSG have not quite been the same.
No, they haven't. But yeah. Okay, so we're pretty well. We're just over halfway through the year, so I think this is a good time for a short break.
Yes, because we haven't completed July yet, but there are a couple of significant moments that we need to touch upon.
Yeah, but
I do need a bit of a short break.
Yes, so we'll have a short break and then we will be back to discuss the rest of the year, our personal moments, and our personal highlights of the year, and what's to come next year. So that's what's to come in the show. So back shortly. Hello, hello. We are back. Here we go. Give me a second. Here we go.
So maybe just a quick recap so far. We've gone through from January to July
Yeah,
of significant events that have happened.
yeah.
And then we continue from July.
Okay.
And I think it's safe to say that in July we had. Let's get one positive moment out of the way first. The Lionesses, the England women's team, back-to-back European champions,
Yeah,
beating Spain on penalties, avenging their defeat from the 2023 World Cup final.
yeah.
And of course, the coach and some of the players have been rewarded in the year's honours list.
Yeah.
And, this is an exciting period for both the England men's and women's team. And we'll talk about the future once we've wrapped up 2025.
Yeah.
But I know you're a big fan of the Lionesses. Do you want to reflect on that as well?
You know what? I was obviously very happy with the fact that the Lionesses won back-to-back Euros. You know, they are just so good, and the manager Serena. I mean, she is incredible. She's absolutely incredible, and people could say, "Oh yeah, but she's only managing a women's team. You know, she wouldn't do the same if she was managing a men's team." And perhaps not. We won't know that until if she decides to go into men's coaching. We won't know if she will be just as good. We won't know. We can't just assume. But I think she's incredible. Like not just what she's done with England, but what she's done in her whole managerial career. I mean, she is known for winning things. Like every team she's managed, she's won things, and especially with England, it's incredible. I just hope that we can get the next time the World Cup comes along. I just hope we can get that, because that will be just amazing. Hopefully the men can do it next year, and the women can do it the following. Thank you. But yeah, my friend says Scotland is getting the World Cup. You and now in brackets he's put. I know they're not. I'm glad you weren't being serious. But yeah, it was great. It was great, and you know, I don't really know what else to say about it. I was very, very happy, and I'm hoping the men can win the World Cup next year, and we'll have more uh, stuff to celebrate. But yeah, Wimbledon, of course, happened in July, or at least the final of the men's final. It doesn't say anything. Oh no, it does. It does say about the women's final as well. July 12th was the women's final. Iga Swiatek of Poland defeats American Amanda Anisimova 6-0, 6-0 for her sixth Grand Slam title. That's a massive victory in the final. Literally, Amanda didn't win anything any legs. She was beaten 6-0, 6-0. That's first women's final shutout since 1911. That's incredible. And then the Wimbledon men's tennis championship went to Italian Jannik Sinner, who defeats two-time defending champion Carlos Alcaraz of Spain 4-6. Lost first sets 4-6, then won 6-4, 6-4, 6-4 to capture his fourth major title. You know what? It's, I've heard of Carlos Alcaraz, but I've not heard of any of the other names from the women or from the men. So Jannik Sinner I've not heard of,
Yannick Skinner.
and I've not heard of either of the women who were in the Wimbledon women's final. But yeah, Yeah, I've already looked through the rest of July. There isn't really much else to really mention. At least I've looked through the events. I've not looked through the deaths yet. Which we'll look at now. Just more stuff that a certain president got involved in. Anyway, in terms of deaths, let's have a look. Of course,
Let's start.
Andre and Diogo Jota, July 3rd, um, died in a car crash. They were in the car together. Um, very sad, very sad. You know what really annoys me though, on this website, Diogo Jota's brother isn't mentioned at all. It just says Diogo Jota, but his brother died as well. Like, why is he not mentioned? That's ridiculous. Anyway, um, yeah, obviously very very sad day for Liverpool, for Wolves who Jota also played for, but for football in general. When Jota died, football came together. Rivalries were pushed to the side, and football came together in mourning of a young football player who lost his life, of a wife who lost her husband. They only just got married as well, and kids who lost their father. Football rivalries go to the side when stuff like this happens. It really does. Like football rivalries mean nothing when these sort of things happen, and it was so sad. And I said at the time, because we did do a Diogo Jota tribute video, and I said at the time that he was one of the only Liverpool players I actually had time for. He seemed like just a genuinely nice guy, and it was so sad. And the fact that his brother died alongside him as well, meaning that their mum and dad lost two kids on the same day at the same time. Devastating for the family, of course, and I just feel for the whole family, Jota's wife and kids as well. Very very sad day. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, it was a shocking moment. Just literally weeks after the end of the season, he'd won the Premier League title with his team. He won the Nations League with Portugal. And a death that reverberated around not just Premier League football, Portuguese football, but international global football. It was just incredibly sad. And just literally 2 weeks after he'd got married.
Yeah.
He had his whole life to look forward to, and of course, his brother as well in the car. How incredibly sad.
It was.
Yeah, it was a very sad moment. That's all I have to say on that one.
Okay. I'm just looking through to see if there's any more to mention. Don't want to skip through too quick. Don't want to miss anyone. The bigger deaths are usually highlighted more. So,
Well, there are two big deaths we need to talk about.
Of course. Well, of course. I mean, we could talk about this next person until we're blue in the face. Of course, on July 22nd, not long after his final gig, back to the beginning, the legendary musical icon Ozzy Osbourne passed away at the age of 76 of a heart attack. Very very sad. Made me very emotional because I felt like it was a significant day for music. I felt like it was a day where music changed forever. I felt like a musical icon had gone and that music was never going to be the same. Whether you're a fan of Ozzy and his music or not, there is no denying that he is of icon status. And he was just you know, he had his issues. He wasn't the perfect person. He'd done bad stuff in his life, but at the end of the day, you know, he'd come past that, and you know, he became the musical icon that we all knew and lots of us loved. And very sad that he passed away, you know, shortly after that gig that he did. But it it, it, it was almost poetic, you know. He did his final gig and he was checking out, and that was it. I think he knew that he was nearing the end of his life, so that's why he wanted to do this before he did unfortunately pass. And you know, indeed he was near the end of his life, because only weeks after that Back to the Beginning gig he did sadly pass away. And like I said, it was an emotional time for, you know, Black Sabbath fans, Ozzy Osbourne fans, but for the music world in general. You know, we lost an icon, and you know, the music industry may never recover from losing such an icon. But that's just my opinion. I pass it on to you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a very sad moment. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't a massive fan of Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath or his music, but I recognised he was a cultural icon, not just for British music, but for global music and popular culture. And to many younger fans, he will be remembered for the reality TV show The Osbournes. But of course, he gave us many classic hits. He had charisma. He was a charismatic performer, and I had the privilege of seeing him perform live in Birmingham in 2022 at the closing ceremony of the Commonwealth Games, which was effectively his last penultimate performance. Yeah, it was a sad moment for British music. We lost an icon. But you know, there are many great stars, around, and they're coming through. You know, you can never replace Ozzy Osbourne, of course not. You know, he was one of a kind. But there will be many, and he won't be forgotten in a hurry.
No. And then we move on.
Wow.
I mean, can I just preface this and say before we get onto this that if you're easily offended, I wouldn't stay, because me and my co-host are no fan of this next person, and we might not be saying very nice stuff. As the person, as the character, of course, we will reflect on that as well. But as the person himself, if you're offended or or anything like that easily, I would go now, because we don't really have anything good to say about this man. And of course, well, I say of course,
just hang on. I just need to take a massive fart. Okay, continue.
We never did a tribute video for this man. Not because of how we felt, but because the timing was just, it was awkward for my co-host, because he had gone away for nearly 2 months, going to a few different countries. So we just never got the time to do it. And I did say we'd do it when he got back, but things just got in the way and we just never managed to do it. But we can talk about it now. And I'm talking about the passing of Hulk Hogan. He died on July 24th. He was an American pro wrestler, of course. WWF Heavyweight Champion, 1984 to 89, WWE Hall of Famer. He was also an actor he was an actor, Suburban Commando, Thunder in Paradise. He died of cardiac arrest at 71. Of course, before he died of cardiac arrest, he had already been in hospital because he had throat issues. And he had an operation. He was back home. He was rehabilitating, and he was trying to get back on his feet, and he had a heart attack. I can't say that me or my co-host shed a tear. Maybe tears of joy, but not. And this is what I'm saying by saying, if you're offended easily, because honestly, we have no love lost for this man, and we'll get into why, but we won't go into massive detail. We'll just give you snippets. But I think we are well within our rights to feel the way that we feel. And we'll also talk about him as the character in WWE, because obviously that needs to be said as well. And I think we should go with the positive first before we talk about the negative. The man in WWE as his character Hulk Hogan, which did actually turn out to be a character, be his whole persona in later life. Like, he was just Hulk Hogan all the time. Like, he was just in character all the time, going brother, 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 brother all the time. Like,
Brother.
not, you know,
Brother.
he just couldn't tear himself away from Terry. What was his name? Terry Bollea. He couldn't tear him. He couldn't tell the difference between himself, Terry Bollea, and Hulk Hogan, the character. And in the end, they just both sort of went together, and he was just Hulk Hogan. But the man as the character, we would be stupid to say that he didn't make an impact in the wrestling business. He made a massive impact, an impact that unfortunately can never be completely, can never completely disappear. He made that big of an impact that he will always be mentioned. He will always be, he will always be remembered. It's, he had such a big impact. He was the reason why WWE was successful in the mid 80s going into the early 90s. He was the reason why WCW was successful in the mid 90s because of the NWO. One of the biggest and most shocking moments in wrestling history was his heel turn when he joined the NWO, a moment that no one will ever forget. It's hard, one of the biggest and most legendary matches, Hulk Hogan versus The Rock at WrestleMania. Still deemed as one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time. A truly passing of the torch moment between Hulk Hogan and The Rock, although The Rock was already pretty much established. It was, he made a massive impact, and he just done that and not done anything stupid in his personal life, I'd be here right now saying that he was one of my heroes, that he was an amazing man, that it was a very sad day when he passed away. But unfortunately, because of the stuff that he did in his personal life, he completely and utterly tainted everything good that he did for the wrestling business. But yeah, the character itself, massive impact in the wrestling business. Before we get on to the bad stuff, I'll pass over to my co-host so he can talk about Hulk Hogan as a character.
I mean, this is one of those moments where it is extremely difficult to kind of separate the artist from
Of course.
the art, because as you said, he literally lived his life as Hulk Hogan inside and outside of the ring.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we'd be stupid to say that he didn't make an impact on wrestling. Even to this day, it can be argued that people who know nothing about wrestling still know who Hulk Hogan is.
Yeah.
He is arguably, and probably forever will be, as famous and as associated with wrestling as The Rock and John Cena.
Yeah.
In some people's eyes, he's more recognizable than both of them. But, he headlined WrestleMania after WrestleMania after WrestleMania, whether it was against The Rock, whether it was against Ultimate Warrior, against Andre the Giant, Sergeant Slaughter, whether it was his heel turn in WCW, the numerous title wins, all the Make-A-Wish wishes that he granted up until John Cena surpassing it. I believe Hogan was the one who had granted the most number of Make-A-Wishes. He was a friend to many celebrities. He was popular. He was a cultural icon. And, he was a hero to many, including myself. I used to model myself on Hulk Hogan in terms of the way I'd speak, in terms of his charisma, in terms of, I had the merch. I was a Hulkamaniac. And then obviously what was to come, which we will touch upon shortly, ruined all of that. I'll let you continue.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, Big Zoo has correctly pointed out, but we'll come on to that in a minute. We'll touch on that in a moment.
Yeah, so then we go on to talk about the negative stuff now. Not just the negative stuff that he did in his personal life, but the negative stuff that he did in the wrestling business. Mainly just his, he was well known for, literally putting the fire out on people's runs. People that were being pushed, he was known for screwing them over. Bret Hart being one of them. He just was known, and the joke still sticks to this day, of having a creative control card, because he literally could do what he wanted and change creative at the drop of a hat because of who he was. If that meant changing the result of a WrestleMania main event, he would do it, like he did with Bret Hart when Bret Hart won the championship. He refused to drop the championship to Bret Hart, so Bret Hart won it off Yokozuna. Then he beat Bret Hart right afterwards, screwing Bret Hart completely over. When Bret Hart should have really had a good run and should have been pushed, because Hulkamania at that point was starting to come to an end in a way, because he'd already been around for a while. It was starting to sort of, although he was still massively popular, he wasn't he wasn't the main attraction anymore. There was lots of other big stars coming through, one being Bret Hart. But Hulk Hogan didn't like that, so he decided he would screw people over, and he continued to do that. He went to WCW and had even more control, because he was a big fish in a very, very small pond. You know what I mean? And it wasn't a small pond, but because he was who he was, it might as well have been a small pond. And he had more control than he ever did. Finger poke of doom rings in my head straight away with the things that he did in WCW. He didn't like putting people over, and if he wasn't going to win, then he would find some way of screwing that person over, or he would refuse to work with them. Not all the time. He did put over people every now and then, but not that often. And that is why, like I said, the joke sticks to this day, that he had a creative control card. And this is just the stuff that he did, in the wrestling business. I mean, one other moment that sticks out to me as well. I mean, there's so many we could touch upon, but we'd be here all day. Another moment that sticks out for me is the whole Shawn Michaels controversy. He was supposed to have a trilogy of matches with Shawn Michaels, where Shawn Michaels, correct me if I'm wrong, would come out as the victor in two of their matches. So they would do a trilogy. Shawn Michaels would come out as the victor, and it would not really a passing of the torch, because Shawn Michaels was already pretty legendary by that point. But it was just sort of you're at the end of your career, Hulk. Shawn isn't. It will give Shawn that bigger, that will give Shawn a bigger push than what he already has. Blah 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 blah. This is what needs to happen. Well, he agreed to it at first, and then decided against it and said, no, I just want the one match and I want to win it. And that was at SummerSlam. So what did Shawn do? Shawn decided to oversell every single thing that Hulk Hogan did in that match, to make sure that match wasn't the match that Hulk wanted, to make sure that match was an embarrassment, because he didn't want to put on a good match for Hulk Hogan, because Hulk Hogan completely screwed him over with that creative control card again. But the one thing that I will never forget, and I'm just going to go on to a funny moment, just to sort of cheer us up in this whole really negative part, that whole sort of rivalry between Shawn Michaels and Hulk Hogan, the very best part of it was, apart from the overselling in that match, was Shawn Michaels' promo where he pretended to be Hulk Hogan and he had a Zimmer frame, and he did this interview as Hulk Hogan, and all he really said was brother, 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 brother. It was hilarious. It was hilarious, and Shawn did such a good job of making Hulk Hogan out to be this really old man who just couldn't do anything anymore. It was hilarious, and that was the best part of that rivalry, in my opinion. But that's what I mean.
I'll share the clip in the chat.
That's what I mean. Like, he screwed over people left, right, and centre. Even people as big as Shawn Michaels, he would screw them over, and he would be allowed to. And this is why we all say he had a creative control card, because it very much seemed like he did, because he could pretty much screw anybody over who, no matter how big they were, because of who he was. Now, I will pass over to my co-host now, because I'm not really sure about this Jesse Ventura thing. So I think you already mentioned it, so I think you know what it is. So I'm gonna allow you to talk about that, because I have no idea, to be honest, about
So I
that.
mean,
So
yeah.
I'll pass on to you.
Yeah, I mean, Hogan was notable for exercising his creative control. People joke about it saying he had a creative control card, which he might as well have had a physical card, but it was a case of him being made to look strong, on top, the number one guy, and that he would only job if it helped him, if it boosted his career, or he still looked good out of it. That's why he jobbed, you could say, to the likes of Goldberg, even though he then won the belt months later, with the finger poke of doom. Why he jobbed to The Rock twice, even though he also then went on to win the WWE title about a month later. Thankfully, only kept it for a month. That's why he jobbed to the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 9, or was it 6?
I can't remember.
I can't remember. And then only then to then win the title again a year later. In a somehow passing of the torch moment. It's why he didn't want to get in the ring with Steve Austin. It's why he didn't want to get in the ring with Bret Hart. It's why, even though he was scheduled to lose to Sting, and the referee was meant to do a fast count, and it was completely botched at Starrcade 1997, when the ref gave a legit count, so it looks as though Hogan had won clean, only for then Bret Hart to come out and have the match restarted for God knows what reason, and Sting to get the win. But then Hogan would obviously win the belt months later. So it was always about Hogan. Even WCW, where this whole shenanigans, not wanting to do the job to Jeff Jarrett or to Booker T. So he then famously came out to the ring. Jeff Jarrett laid down. Vince Russo then gave that rant. Yeah, it was all a bit ridiculous. He just did whatever he needed to do to look after Hogan, look after number one. He screwed over people in the wrestling business, and yes, wrestlers wanted to join together to form a union, and Jesse Ventura was one of the lead names in that. Again, an individual who also has a little bit of skeletons in his closet. But Hogan, not wanting other wrestlers to have an equal say in their careers, or more than he did, as Big Zoo has pointed out, screwed over his colleagues, and yeah, not to mention the steroids scandal as well.
Yeah.
But this is all just, this is all, what was to come after that.
Yeah.
It's all just tip of the iceberg stuff.
It is. I mean,
and it's like he was a bad guy.
yeah.
I mean, let's be honest, he was a bad guy in real life, and let me just make very clear. as well. Obviously, being recorded privately, there are issues with that. But nevertheless, it was all part of the court case. And as we know, infamously, a recording came out in about 2015, which dated back to about 2006, in where he made some very, very, very deeply offensive and derogatory comments about his daughter's then African American boyfriend. I'm not going to allude to what words were used or the context in which they were used. He wasn't under the influence. And when he was asked a direct question if he considers himself a racist, he literally said that yes, he is. And, there is no defense. I mean, even if he hadn't said that, there is no defense to what he said. Now, ultimately, the point has to also be made. If that recording had never taken place and had never been broadcast publicly, we would have been none the wiser, and we may well have looked at him differently to this day. And there are plenty of things people do behind closed doors that we will never see or hear about. But that's ifs, buts, and maybes. We did know about this, and rightly so. He was removed from the WWE Hall of Fame and he was suspended by WWE for a period. He was then brought back into the fold, one would argue because of WWE's deal with Saudi Arabia. He gave what many wrestlers considered a fake apology and never really showed any remorse or sort of integrity or, insight into why what he said and did was wrong.
Yeah.
And we kind of thought that was the end of it. But it really wasn't. It really wasn't. And look, people are entitled to their political views, but, I think it's fair to say when you align your views with a movement that is accused of racism, bigotry, xenophobia, misogyny, it's very difficult to kind of escape that tarnish, as it were. And when he gave that speech that he did at the Republican conference and, nailed his colours to the mast, as it were, you kind of think back to that incident and that recording and think, well, this is what the man was like all along.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that, other appearances he had made in the WWE outside of Saudi Arabia, he was booed out the building on pretty much every occasion. There was that. And then that was followed up by a recording that was posted online of him at a rally where he claims he was drunk, but then he proceeded to make, again, some very, very derogatory and racist comments about then presidential candidate and then US Vice President Kamala Harris, about her ethnicity, her background, and then making fun of various ethnic groups. He then stopped himself and said, I'm probably going to get cancelled for that. It was only the beer talking. I mean, at that point, we just kind of, nothing really shocked us anymore.
No.
And then, that was to really, there was the final moment where he was booed on the first Raw on Netflix.
Yeah.
Couldn't even hear what he was saying. He was just booed. And then, obviously, he passed away.
Yeah.
And other bizarre things that he said, like, for example, he hoped that fans would be able to forgive him in time, just like they forgave Chris Benoit, because, who forgave Benoit? And this is how screwed up in the head the man was, that he would even compare himself to a man who, the authorities concluded murdered his wife and son. this is what had become of the so-called Great Hulk Hogan, comparing himself to murderers. So yeah, when he died, I didn't bat an eyelid. I didn't shed a tear.
No.
I was sad because, it's sad when somebody who I regarded as a hero and we should have been mourning his loss and celebrating his career, we reacted in that way. But, it seems he had his own issues in his personal life as well. Hadn't spoken or seen his daughter. Well, hadn't seen his daughter for a couple of years. They were distant from each other. He had never met his grandchildren. Didn't want to. So many other issues. I'm not going to dissect his personal life, but, it seems like his personal life reflected all the controversies.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the tributes that were paid to him were kind of half-hearted in the sense that they were all caveated to reflect the fact that he was a difficult man. He had a difficult legacy. And the one tribute that I remember the most was Tony Schiavone's, where he probably spent most of his tribute kind of alluding to the fact that he was a flawed man, and that unless anyone, and sadly this is something that I have been through, unless anyone has lost a parent or a close relative, you won't know that feeling. And that is a difficult period. And look, my heart, my sympathies go out to, Nick, Brooke, and, Hogan's close family and friends who, regardless of what we say, to them were his family and, they were family and friends. And they would be hurting. But I'm not going to pretend and say just because a man has died that suddenly we forget everything that he did wrong. Now, whether or not people want to forgive, whether you do that on a religious basis or on a spiritual basis, that is up to each. Excuse me. That is up to each of us as an individual. I mean, it's not necessarily for me to kind of forgive. Ultimately, he didn't do anything to me personally, but I just choose not to honour his legacy. And I think, much like Steve Austin said about Chris Benoit, his record will speak for itself. His achievements in the ring will speak for itself. His achievements in the business will speak for itself. But his actions as a man forever tarnished his legacy.
Yeah.
And sadly, that is how we will remember Hulk Hogan. It is difficult to kind of go back and look at those positive moments and just remember the man for who he was as a wrestler, because we can't.
No.
And I just want to caveat as well, we called him an actor. Well, that's dubious, because if you've had the misfortune of sitting through any of his movies, with possibly the exception of Rocky 3, it's, if that's acting, then, then I'm a rocket scientist, because, yeah, I mean, if you really want to watch a bad movie that is just like so bad, then watch Mr. Nanny, because that movie is terrible. It is probably the worst movie I've ever seen. But look, I saw Hulk Hogan wrestle. Indeed, the match that I saw him in was his last ever match. And that took place in Manchester in 2012 at a TNA house show, in a tag team match with him and Sting against, I think it might have been Bully Ray and Kurt Angle. I can't remember. But he was once upon a time one of my heroes, and he isn't anymore. I feel sad. In a way, I do feel sad that he's gone, that he died, and that's the memory we have of him.
Yeah.
But, you reap what you sow. this is not me being religious or anything, but you reap what you sow.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe that's what he deserved.
Yeah.
And as I said, this is not me celebrating his death. It's, it's not for us to kind of pass that final judgment, but we can only reflect on what happened.
Yeah.
And whether or not he himself reflected on that. And the evidence points to the fact that he didn't really. Either he didn't understand or he didn't care about the impacts of his actions.
Yeah.
And, like I said, my sympathies to his family and friends, and indeed his fans. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that he was a nice guy or, forgive his flaws just because he's died.
No, exactly. I don't really have anything else to add. I think you've said everything we needed to say, but just to sort of put my own spin on things. I mean, look, he, up until that recording, he was one of my favourites. I enjoyed seeing him every time he turned up. I mean, obviously, I'd heard the controversies and I'd heard some of the stuff that he'd done backstage and stuff like that, but that was just like wrestling politics. You heard a lot about a lot of different superstars. Didn't necessarily mean they were bad people. It just, it was just egos. So I didn't think too much of it. But and it didn't really taint my what I thought of him. And then that recording come out, and I heard what he had to say, and like my co-host said, we're not going to go into details about the exact words and the things that he said. I'm sure most of you have heard the recording by now, but it was shocking to hear somebody who you had literally like thought of as a hero since you very first started watching wrestling. So more than 10 years, I idolized this man. He was one of my favorites. I enjoyed seeing him turn up. Every time his music hit, I would dance and I would sing the song. And then this recording came out, and it devastated me because I idolized the man. As my co-host said, he was one of his heroes. It was devastating for people like me and my co-host. We didn't want to believe that somebody who we thought of as a hero had said such things or was a racist. And I could have forgiven it if it was a genuine mistake and he came out with a very heartfelt apology and and everything like that, but he didn't. He didn't try and rectify what he'd done wrong. He came out with a half-assed apology, which a lot of people in the wrestling business and beyond thought was completely fake, that he'd just done for the sake of getting back into WWE. And it was just so half-assed. And then, like my co-host said, he goes on to say, when someone asked him if he was a racist, he goes on to say, yeah, I am a racist. Like, what? Like, I don't understand his thinking. Like, yeah, okay, he was being brutally honest with that question, answering it, but like, I don't understand it. I just don't understand it, and I'm not going to go on and on because we have spoken about Hulk Hogan quite a lot, and there is more people that we need to talk about, but yeah, it was just shocking, and then the recent things that he has done as well. Like my co-host said, nothing shocked us. All this stuff that he said about Kamala Harris, the fact that he wanted to body slam her, he wanted to attack a woman. I mean, that just says everything about him, and yet he says it was the alcohol. It's not an excuse, because if anything, if you're drunk, it is said that you are your most honest when you are drunk, because you don't have any filter when you are drunk. So you are your most honest when you are drunk. You say your real feelings when you're drunk. So if anything, the drunken thing really isn't an excuse. He said what he really felt inside. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, yeah, you can support the man that you support all day long. You can have whatever political beliefs you want to have. You know, I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying people shouldn't support who they want to support. But at the end of the day, to say that you want to body slam and attack a woman, like, what? Like, that alongside the racist stuff. And then the stuff that he said about Kamala Harris's, uh, background, and the way he offended many different people. It's like, I don't know what he was thinking. And then that whole line of, oh, people have forgiven Chris Benoit, so why can't they forgive me? Who the fuck has forgiven Chris Benoit? Like, in what world does he think we're living in that anybody has forgiven Chris Benoit for what he did? Like, how can you? Like, how can you forgive somebody for what Chris Benoit did? As much as we want to celebrate Chris Benoit for the amazing athlete he was, he tainted that. He ruined that he ruined it because of what he did. And as much as we want to celebrate Hulk Hogan for the accomplishments and the big impact he made on the wrestling business, we can't because he tainted it. Not in the same way, but still, still in quite a bad way. And then for himself to compare himself to Chris Benoit, I honestly think he was suffering from some sort of mental injury or mental just something going on in his head, because no normal sane person compares himself to somebody that killed their wife and child and then killed themselves. No one compares themselves to somebody like that, because let's be honest, as bad as Hulk Hogan is, he didn't kill anyone. He didn't kill his child or his wife. Yes, Hulk Hogan did a lot of bad stuff, but let's be honest, he wasn't as bad as Chris Benoit. He's not far off. But he didn't do anything as bad as Chris Benoit, so why the hell is he comparing himself to Chris Benoit? Why is he saying that we've forgiven Chris Benoit? We haven't. But anyway, this isn't about Chris Benoit. This is about Hulk Hogan, and it's honestly he. When I found out that he had died, my co-host sent me a text saying that Hulk Hogan had died, and I literally there was a bit of sadness because he was a hero of mine at one point. He was one of my favourites at one point. He made such a big impact on an industry that I absolutely love with all of my heart. So of course I'm going to feel a bit of sadness. Did I shed a tear for the man? No. No, I did not, because he didn't deserve my tears. But anyway, that's enough on Hulk Hogan. We have stuck on it a bit because we never did a tribute video. Oh, I say a tribute video. We never spoke about him or anything like that. So that's just us getting that off our chest. But that's
And I
about it.
think, both of us as wrestling fans as well, I think it was important for us to kind of reflect on that.
Of course, of course.
I mean, even to this day on my social media, I have still not posted anything about Hulk
me
Hogan,
neither.
and I don't think I will. I was tempted to kind of just caveat it, but I don't think there's any need at
No.
this point now. I think.
Yeah, so that's it really for July for deaths. We move on to August. Let's see what happened in August. So in terms of events that happened in August, let me just have a look. More stuff that a certain president has done. Oh, what a bad picture. Jesus. Another thing that a certain president has done. Another thing that a certain president has done. What the hell? I don't want to see him anymore. Can we not get some other stuff that other people have done? Something good. Something positive. Not a lot's happening. Well, I suppose if you're a big fan of music and a big fan of this person in particular, this would be a big moment for you in the year. For me, it's not a massive moment because although I am a big fan of this person, it's still not really a massive thing or a massive deal for me. But Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce got engaged on August 25th. I do like Taylor Swift. I'm quite a big fan. Would I go as far as say I'm a Swiftie? I will not say one way or another, but yeah, in terms of the engagement, not really something that I'm that bothered about. Of course, on August 30th, Cyndi Lauper wrapped up her Girls Just Want to Have Fun farewell tour at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles. Of course, a legendary singer.
And one very much connected with the wrestling industry as well.
Of course, she did appear in the wrestling business at one point as well. But yeah, very big, very, very big singer there, legendary singer retiring. So yeah, and that's it for the events in August. Let's move on to deaths. See if there's any worth mentioning. I'm sure there will be. Nothing jumping out at me at the moment. The astronaut Jim Lovell passed away at the age of 97. US astronaut. 97, man. Good age.
He was on the Apollo 13 mission as well.
Yeah.
Which the movie was based on.
Yeah. So I'm still just looking through here. Nothing else jumping out at me. Angela Mortimer, a British tennis player. She died at 93. Never heard of her, but rest in peace. Rest in peace to everybody here that I can see. I'm obviously not going to mention them all, like I've said, but it is by no means in a disrespectful way. Nothing really of note in August. Pretty quiet month, really, in terms of major events and major deaths. Well, what I would deem a major death. Like I said, no disrespect to anybody that has died. Okay. Another earthquake happened on September 1st. Jalalabad in Afghanistan, killing at least 2,200 people. Another, on September 2nd, another earthquake in Afghanistan erupts, surrounding a large earthquake one day earlier, so it was around about the same place. Canal. Awful. Another earthquake in Afghanistan on September 4th. Jesus Christ, 3 in 4 days. All in the same sort of area. Jesus. Another thing that a certain president has done. Can't go for a month without seeing something that he's fucking done. He certainly likes to see his fucking name mentioned. Max Verstappen set fastest Formula 1 lap in history, surpassing Lewis Hamilton's record at the Italian Grand Prix. Carlos Alcaraz won the US Men's Tennis Open. He had a good year of tennis, by the looks of it. Anything else? We will get to that. Something rather important that happened in September. We'll talk about it when we get through everything else, because it's probably something that we're going to talk about just in a little bit of detail. We'll also talk about that as well, because that will coincide. September 25th, Paris court sentenced former French President Nicolas Sarkozy to 5 years in prison after finding him guilty of criminal conspiracy regarding using funds from Libya to finance his 2007 campaign. I didn't even know anything about that.
Well, yeah, I knew. He's out of prison now.
He was put in prison for 5 years on September 25th. How is
Yeah,
he
and
out
he's been
already?
released.
How?
Don't know. Yeah, just
That's ridiculous. Oh, and September 30th, another thing that's sort of drone wrestler. Hi, mate. He said biggest moment of 2025: John Cena retirement, Hulk Hogan death. We've already discussed Hulk Hogan's death. I know you are not a fan of the stuff that I say about Hulk Hogan, so probably best that you didn't hear what I said. But we will touch on we will talk about the John Cena retirement when we come to December. But yeah, September 30th, something that will something that's quite significant for people of our age group, including you, drone wrestler. Internet provider AOL discontinues its dial-up service on September 30th. Of course, significant moment in the history of internet. But of course, the one thing, that major thing that happened in September that I did say that we would touch on, which I will do shortly. I just want to see if there was any other significant deaths in September before we touch on it. Giorgio Armani died in September, on September 4th.
of course.
Of course, the legendary Italian fashion designer.
Yeah, there were two quite big deaths.
So, yeah, he died on September 4th.
I think let's talk about the negative one first.
Duchess of Kent died at 92. We'll touch on the big death from September shortly. I just want to go through everything else first. Robert Redford, of course, he died September 16th. He was American actor from The Sting, The Candidate, The Natural, All the President's Men, an Academy Award-winning director, Ordinary People quiz show. A river runs through it, and yeah, he died at 89. Anything else popping up? Nothing is jumping out at me. Right, okay, so that's it. So obviously the big death we have to talk about from September. We did, I believe we have talked about this already, or maybe we haven't on stream. I'm not sure. But it is of course the and again, if you're offended easily, I would leave now. It is of course the assassination of Charlie Kirk. On September 10th, he was 32 years of age. Yeah. Now, before we get into the discussion, I want to preface this by saying, by no means do we agree on the assassination of Charlie Kirk. By no means do we think that he deserved what he got. We not in any way, and in no way do we condone anybody who released videos celebrating and dancing. We don't condone that. At all. I just want to preface what we're about to say by saying that, so that we don't get a load of fucking hate for saying what we're going to say. But yeah, Charlie Kirk's death. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know how to begin with this one, because I was no fan of the man. Either was my co-host. For various different reasons. He fought for freedom of speech. That was his big thing, fighting for freedom of speech. The only problem with the fact that he was fighting for freedom of speech is he was fighting for freedom of speech as long as it agreed with him. If he welcomed anyone and anybody and everybody on his on his debates. But as soon as they would start talking about something that he didn't agree with, he would shut them down, he would cut them off, and he would shout over them to make sure that he was heard over them. Because although he did fight for freedom of speech, he didn't. He only fought for freedom of speech if you agreed with what he was saying, or if you were saying stuff that he agreed with. If you said stuff he didn't agree with, he didn't let you speak. He talked over you, and he just didn't want to hear what you had to say. And it's laughable that so many people like idolized him and thought he was some sort of fucking god, and that he was going to change American, the way America, he was going to change American lives, and if he was still alive, and lived to old age, that he would have made a massive impact on American history, and massive impact on America in general. He wouldn't have, because he just wouldn't have. He would have done what he did for a few years, and then he probably would have been forgotten about. As soon as a certain president wasn't in office anymore, he would have been forgotten about. So, I don't get why people idolized him. I don't get how anybody can agree with the stuff that he was saying. I'm not going to get into everything that he said because I could be here all day, but there's one thing that sticks out at me. I saw a video, he's talking to a woman, and this woman was saying, because he was, one of the big things that he advocated was that he didn't think that abortion should be allowed. And he massively advocated that. And this woman came on to one of his debates and started talking about this very subject, and said something along the lines of, what if, so you don't agree with abortion, but what if your daughter was raped and got pregnant because of that rape? Would you force your daughter to have that baby? He said yes, which I think is utterly disgusting, because I'm not saying that babies that were conceived from rape should all be aborted instantly. I'm not saying that at all, because it's not the baby's fault. But at the same time, there should always be a choice, especially in that instance, especially if that's the way that the baby's been conceived. There should always be that choice, always. And he said, "Oh, I would force my daughter to give birth to that baby because the trauma of having that abortion is far more than the trauma of giving birth to a baby through rape." Absolute bullshit. It's definitely not. Anybody that's been through that will tell you it's definitely not. And there were so many women online that I saw in the comments saying what I've just said, that it's not. And that's just one of the many things that he said that I didn't agree with. Of course, he was very close with a certain president who I cannot stand either. And this is probably, this, me talking like this is probably going to not, I'm probably not going to be allowed to enter America until he's not in office, which is absolutely fine by me. But yeah, I don't know. It was, like I said, did he deserve to be assassinated? No. No, not at all. He was killed in front of his kids. His kids saw it, and that's who I feel sorry for in this scenario. I don't feel sorry for his wife. I mean, have you seen how she's been since he died? I don't feel sorry for her. I feel sorry for them kids, not just because they saw their dad die in front of their eyes, or saw their dad get shot in front of their eyes, which must be traumatic. They have been through such a traumatic event in their life, and their mum is not even around to be with them. She's on TV, she's doing tours, she's everywhere, but at home with her kids after they've been through something so traumatic. I'm not out here about to tell anybody how they should grieve, but I don't think I've actually seen her grieve once. And any time she's actually been crying, it's been looked very fake. And there's even a video of her applying fake tears before she went on stage for one of her speeches. That just says it all to me. But anyway, it's not about Erica, it's about Charlie. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what else to say. I don't want to get into it too deep because I will definitely cause offence. But one other thing I wanted to touch upon is this whole sort of thing that happened after Charlie's death, where people were celebrating, which I do not condone, but people were celebrating, expressing their opinion on how they felt about Charlie, and then people were literally sending these videos to their employers and getting them sacked, which I think is just completely wrong. Like, these people who are, obviously very big supporters of Charlie, The one thing he fought for more than anything, although only if people agreed with him, was freedom of speech. And now you're taking that away from people who are just expressing their opinion about somebody that's died, that they're not as sad that they died. Do I agree with the fact that they posted videos of celebrating his death? No. If you don't like him and you want to celebrate his death or even be happy that he's dead, don't post it online. Keep it to yourself. You're allowed to feel that, but don't post it online. Don't be saying it. Don't be, that's just stupid. But I don't agree with people getting these videos or taking pictures of people's tweets and sending them to their employers and getting them sacked. I don't agree with that in any way, shape, or form, because that is taking away their freedom of speech, something that Charlie Kirk was fighting for. So the very thing that Charlie Kirk was fighting for, who you supported, you're now completely, going against what he was fighting for, in turn besmirching his memory. Didn't understand it. And then this whole thing of Jimmy Kimmel being took off the air because of what he said, even though he didn't really say anything about Charlie Kirk, he just reiterated something that he had seen in the news, and then he was took off the air. And the only reason he was took off the air is because a certain president threatened, I can't remember the network that he's on, I don't know if it's ABC or CBS, but he threatened them, whoever it was, he needs to be taken off the air, and they did. Took him off the air, but only temporarily. He was back on the air very, very quickly, and so he should be. Nobody should be scared about using their freedom of speech, which is what America is supposed to be all about. Nobody should be scared to say what they want to say. They shouldn't be scared about losing their job because they have an opinion. I think it's completely ridiculous. But I'm glad that ABC, CBS, whoever it is, that whatever network it is that Jimmy's on, I'm glad that they saw through it and brought him back, because he didn't deserve to be taken off the air in the first place. Because he didn't actually say anything wrong. He didn't actually express an opinion. He just read or repeated something that he had seen in the news, that he had seen somewhere online or in the news. So that's just the other thing I wanted to touch upon. I do not agree in any way, shape, or form anybody trying to get anybody fired for having an opinion. I think it's downright stupid and idiotic, because you're actually going against the very thing that Charlie Kirk fought for more than anything else. The man that you supported, you're just besmirching his memory by, getting people fired for having their opinion, for having their freedom of speech, the very thing that Charlie fought for. It didn't make sense to me. I thought it was stupid, and I don't think that people deserve to be fired for having an opinion. That is my opinion. But anyway, as you can see, I'm quite passionate about this subject and about Charlie Kirk and how much I do not like the man. But I think I've said enough about this, so I will pass over to my co-host if he wants to add anything.
Sure. I mean, I'm not going to add too much because I mostly agree with everything that you're saying. I mean, I also wish to caveat that under no circumstances is it right for anyone to be executed, assassinated, or whatever just for having a differing political view. But a bit like, I mean, there is no but. I suppose what I want to say is, just because of the tragic circumstances, and believe me, I feel very much for his children, that doesn't negate the fact that he was a horrible human being. Some of his views were awful. He was a racist, he was a fascist, he was homophobic, he was transphobic, a misogynist. And, he was only an advocate of free speech as long as it applied to him. He couldn't handle criticism of his views. He was no champion for free speech. So I'm not going to say much more on the man, but I don't shed a tear for him. I feel sorry for his friends and family, not for him. He was a horrible human being. He held horrible views. And I'm not going to sit here and praise him or window dress his legacy just to kind of appease any far right wing nutters out there who might be listening. just to make them happy. And frankly, if there are people listening to this who are offended by what me or you have to say, then frankly, you can do one.
Exactly.
I'm not, I am not rewriting history. I'm merely reflecting on what he said in his own words.
Yeah.
And, ironically, I'm using my right to free speech to say that.
Yeah.
So he was a horrible man. He was a racist. He was a fascist. And I'll say that again. He was a horrible man. He was a racist. He was a fascist, amongst other things. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Well, we move on to October, and we'll try and get
Well,
through.
we missed one very other significant death in September.
I didn't see it in the thing on this website. I didn't see any more. Go on.
Yes, of course. We sadly lost a true sporting icon in Britain, but mainly in his home city of Manchester. A passionate Man City
Of
fan.
course. Why didn't it show it on here?
And a two-weight world champion. I am, of course, talking about the sad passing of Ricky the Hitman Hatton. And I'm not going to touch upon the circumstances of his death. All I will say is that to anyone listening who ever has challenges with mental health, there is help and support out there. Don't be afraid to seek it out.
Absolutely.
But, Ricky Hatton was an icon, very much loved, a man I got to meet multiple times, very down-to-earth individual. Nobody will say he was the best fighter pound for pound, but he was certainly one of the best in terms of his personality, in terms of his fan base. He would come out to Blue Moon. He would wear the Man City crest on his shorts. He was...
I mean, no one's perfect.
He was at a time when City were not experiencing success on the pitch.
Yeah.
He was the closest thing we had to a champion in anything. And, a regular at the Etihad and at Main Road prior to that. And it's just incredibly sad that we'll never see him again.
It is. I mean, for me personally, I've never been a big boxing fan. That does not mean that I don't respect the athletes and what they've done. But never been a massive boxing fan. But obviously, I knew who Ricky Hatton was. I'd seen some of Ricky Hatton's fights, and he was in the process of training for another fight. He was, coming back to the ring, and it's very sad that we'll never get to see that. But obviously, he had his issues, he had his troubles, and unfortunately, he couldn't get past them. And it is very, very sad, especially when somebody chooses to do what he did. It's even sadder. And he'll never be forgotten. He's a Manchester icon, no doubt. I'm very on. I'm not a Man City fan, and as much as it pains me to have to go anywhere near the Etihad, I was very happy that I managed to go and pay tribute to Ricky at the Etihad on the day of his funeral. That day I didn't even think about Manchester City or the rivalry. I just thought of Ricky, and it was good to pay tribute to him. But yeah, it was very sad, but yeah, what a loss it was for the boxing world, for sport world. Yeah, very sad. But let's get through the last 3 months here, because this has been going on quite a while. And we've still got a fair bit to talk about. but I'll just get through a few of these. We've talked enough about earthquakes. There's another earthquake, but I'm not going to mention it. Sean Diddy Combs sentenced to 4 years and 2 months in in a federal criminal case of transportation for prostitution.
Of
October
course,
3rd.
something we forgot to mention back in January: the passing of actor Gene Hackman and his wife, who were found dead at home.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Gene Hackman, Academy Award. I think he won an Academy Award winning actor, but to
Yeah.
many of us will be forever remembered as Lex Luthor.
Yeah, of course.
Luthor in the Superman movies.
Yeah. Yeah, so more earthquakes. Jesus Christ. So many earthquakes. I'm trying to get through this as quick as I can. Okay. No, I can't see anything else there for October. Actually, no. October 30th, a big event in the royal, in the English royal world. Buckingham Palace announces Prince Andrew will be stripped of all titles and evicted from the Royal Lodge due to his association with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. He shall be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and move into private lodgings. Of course, it's very significant. I won't touch on that anymore, really.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't think we need to. I think it's very self-explanatory. I'm just looking through the deaths now, see if there's any ones that we need to talk about. I can't see any so far. Oh, of course, Diane Keaton. She died
Yes.
October 11th. Our American Academy Award-winning actress. Annie Hall, Looking at Mr. Goodbar, Father of the Bride, The First Wives Club, director and photographer as well. She died of bacterial pneumonia
And of course,
at 79.
as well, if you're a fan of the movies like I am, was famously portrayed Kay Adams in the Godfather trilogy, the wife and then ex-wife of Michael Corleone.
Yes.
So her presence in cinema history will be forever preserved.
Yes. Another death here that we people in the UK will probably know. Tony Cornter, British actor who played Roy Evans in EastEnders, died at 88. He did a lot more parts than just Roy Evans in EastEnders, but that seems to be what this page thinks he's most known for. But he played many different parts in different soaps and different things as well. Very good actor. So that's him. Anything else jumping out at me? I don't want to miss anything. No, I can't see anything else. Nothing else is jumping out at me. So I think that will be it for October. Yeah. So we move on to November. We're getting towards the end now. And I think what we're going to do, because there's still a lot to talk about as well, we've still got our personal highlights for this year. We still have what's to come next year. What we're looking forward to next year, and all that sort of stuff. So I think what we're going to have to do, because this has been going on quite a while, is we're going to have to do two parts. We're going to have to do a part one, which is today, and then a part two tomorrow, or technically later today. For New Year's Eve. I'm literally doing nothing for New Year's Eve because I'm working New Year's Day, so I'm around all day. My gran is going to be out, so we can do part two tomorrow. So yeah, let's just get through November, December quickly, and then we will end our part one.
Okay, so November.
Yes, so November. I'm just looking here if there's anything major that we need to talk about. Of course, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, inductees: Bad Company, Chubby Checker, Joe Cocker, Cyndi Lauper, Outkast, Salt and Pepper, Soundgarden, White Stripes, Warren Zevon, Nicky Hopkins, Carol Kay, Tom Bell, and Lenny Waronker. A lot of them I heard of. A lot of them very much deserve to be in there. So yeah, that's good.
Still no Oasis though.
No. And then what you mentioned earlier, Sarkozy released November 10th. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy is free from prison 3 weeks into his 5-year sentence and put under house arrest as he appeals guilty criminal conspiracy verdict. Okay.
Zoran Mamdani becomes mayor of New York City, the first Muslim mayor of New York City, much to the disdain of the president.
100 rules for living to 100. Dick Van Dyke, of course, who is 100, he released a guide to a happy life living to 100, a memoir by Dick Van Dyke. LeBron James begins his 23rd season, the longest career in the league's history, which is pretty. He's 40 as well, which is pretty good. And then anything else? Nothing major. Let's have a quick look at the deaths. I thought I said Adam Sandler. Then I was like, did I miss that? No, nothing there. Just trying to get through these as quick as I can because me and my co-host are obviously very tired as it's nearly 2 a.m. in the morning. Dick Cheney, he died.
Yeah.
At 84, complications of pneumonia and vascular disease. He was an American Republican politician, vice president from 2001 to 9, defense secretary from 1989 to 93, and congressman from 1979 to 1989. So there's that. Anything else? I am flying through this, but I don't want to miss anyone because it would be disrespectful. Anybody else of any note? Nope. Okay. Well, that's November then, and then December. Let's have a quick look. Events in December.
Well, one that I will say straight off the bat, Lando Norris becoming
Of
the
course.
Formula One world champion.
Of course. Roger Daltrey United, as we said earlier on, when he was in the, we already knew that was happening.
Anthony Joshua had knocked out Jake Paul.
Of course.
And then just days later, of course, many of you will have seen the news that he's been involved in a fatal car crash where two of his friends sadly passed away.
Yes. So this website is bloody rubbish. It doesn't mention like the stuff you've just mentioned. But yeah. Yeah. I mean, Anthony Joshua knocking out Jake Paul. Brilliant to see. Love the fact that he broke his jaw. I think he's a knob, just like I think his brother's a knob. So it was good to see him humbled, you know. Obviously very sad what happened with Anthony Joshua losing his two best friends just days later in a car crash. His personal trainer is one of his good friends. A lot of people say they'll be surprised if he ever boxes again. Not because of his injuries or anything like that, but because of the mental scars. But that is what we're yet to obviously know that. But I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't even blame him.
Obviously, the important thing now is for Anthony Joshua to recover from his injuries.
Of course.
And obviously take all the time he needs.
And I just wanted to mention one thing as well, because there's lots of idiots online already pretending that the detective's trying to figure out how this crash happened or what happened with this crash. Can I just say, just stop with the stupid conspiracies about, Jake Paul had something to do with the crash. Did he fuck? It was just a tragic accident. Like, Jake Paul wants a rematch. Like, in what way would Anthony Joshua being dead help him? He wanted a rematch. Like, honestly, these conspiracy theorists and these expert detectives on TikTok, honestly, get a life. It didn't happen. Your conspiracies are not true. Anyway, in terms of deaths that happened in December, let me just get through them quickly, and then we can call it a day, and then we'll do part 2 later on today. I was hoping to get through it all in one part, but if we were to do that, we'd probably be talking for another hour and a half or something like that, and it's just far too late.
I have an early morning bus to catch.
Yes. So we want to get through, but I suppose. Hang on a minute. I suppose one of the big deaths to talk about from December, what's just popped up, is Rob Reiner and his wife, very sadly found dead in their home. Since he was found dead, it's been not completely 100% confirmed, but their son has been arrested on suspicion of murdering,
and is awaiting trial.
And he is awaiting trial. I preface that by saying that he is on trial. We don't know if he's actually done it. We're just saying what's been in the news.
Well, certainly, obviously, yeah, there is a trial to come, and
yeah, of course, very tragic. That Rob Reiner, who was obviously a film director, did many classic films like When Harry Met Sally, Stand By Me, Princess Bride, just 3 movies.
Stand
there.
By Me, a personal favourite of mine. This is Spinal Tap as well.
Yeah, very, very sad that his life ended the way it did, and for his wife to go with him as well.
But I think the most shocking aspect of that was everyone's favourite person, a certain president, react the way he reacted to it. And I'm not going to give any airtime to the comments, but my God, when you think somebody couldn't get any worse.
Right, exactly.
The crassness of it. And it's like...
Yeah, it's just disgusting. It's just disgusting, and I don't really want to give him any more airtime because he doesn't deserve it. But December 17th, British actor from Waterloo Road, William Rush, he sadly died at 31. Of course, known as, well, not known, but he is the son of the actress that played Anna in Coronation Street. That is her son. So very, very, very sad news.
Yes.
31 he was. And
Debbie Rush's son.
I won't say that I'm a massive Waterloo Road fan, so I didn't really know who he was, but sad nevertheless at such a young age as well.
And, my thoughts with Debbie and
and
the family, the Rush family and friends, and
yes, of course,
the biggest. Well, we will talk about it later, but of course we can't not mention it because it wasn't just a significant moment in wrestling, but probably in popular culture as well.
I mean, we'll touch on that on our next part tomorrow. We'll talk about that because we could talk about that for ages. So we're probably better off leaving that till then because you want to get off to bed. So, but of course, December 22nd, Chris Rea passed away. Of course, he was, probably not most well known, but certainly for me, most well known for singing "Driving Home for Christmas." And doesn't it always seem to be that people that write or sing Christmas classics die around Christmas?
George Michael died on Boxing Day. Back in 2016.
Yeah. The woman, what was her name, who sang alongside the Pogues on Fairy Tale of New York. That's it. She died around Christmas. I'm sure. Yeah. She
was in the Amazon.
Yeah. He also, what was his name from the Pogues?
Shane McGowan.
He died on November 30th.
Yeah.
So near Christmas as well. So that was near Christmas. I'm sure there's somebody else as well. Mariah Carey will probably die around Christmas as well, knowing the curse. But
I hope not.
But let's not talk about that because hopefully she's not going to go for a while.
I mean, we'll talk about it later, but I'm hopefully going to be at the Olympics opening ceremony in February, and Mariah Carey's scheduled to be there. So
okay, and I'm probably the last death of note to talk about that happened on the 28th of December, so only a couple of days ago. Brigitte Bardot, a French model, actress, sex symbol, singer, and animal
Yeah.
rights activist, died at 91. Very sad indeed.
I do want to caveat that, though, that she did have a very, very controversial legacy.
Of course, of course.
Very much in the Hulk Hogan vein. On the
Yeah.
one hand, she advocated animal rights, but I'm very sorry to say was openly Islamophobic, xenophobic, and
Yeah.
all sorts. But like I said, it's not for me to judge in this situation. But yeah.
Okay, so I think we'll leave it there for part one. We hope you've enjoyed part one. Sorry if we've rambled on a bit. We've nearly been going for 3 hours, but there is a lot to talk about for what's happened this year. I mean, so many, um, you know, so many like controversial things happen. So many big deaths happen this year as well. So much to talk about. But tomorrow in part two, we're going to talk about the John Cena retirement tour. We're going to talk about the year of 2025 in wrestling, mainly WWE because neither of us are AEW fans. But by all means, my co-host can mention AEW stuff if he wants to.
Well, of course, there's one moment in AEW you must mention.
Yeah. So
Which we will.
the year of wrestling we'll talk about in our next part. Our personal highlights of the year, and also what's to come as well. In 2026, what we're looking forward to in 2026. So hopefully you'll join us for part two tomorrow. I'm gonna do it at an earlier time tomorrow because I want to be off stream by the time New Year comes around. So well, obviously if this is okay with my co-host, probably do it if you're free. I'm just thinking what time my gram's going. Probably do it around. I'm trying to think how long the stream will take. Probably between maybe 8 and 9.
Okay.
I'll let you know a clearer time. Probably near the 8 o'clock mark. To be honest. But yeah, so we'll do part two tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed the stream, and we'll see you for part two of our 2025 wrap up tomorrow. Bye, everyone.
Okay.
Hang on. Why is it doing that? Oh, what's it doing? I can't mute it.